Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today's episode is truly special to me. Joining us is Rich Mulder, a man I met on an unforgettable journey to Peru with the Heroic Hearts projects. Since then, Rich has become not just a colleague, but a close friend and a fellow traveler on the path of continuous growth and discovery. Rich's story is nothing short of inspirational. A West Point graduate and former Army officer, he served bravely for 5 years in the infantry, leading over 100 dismounted patrols in Afghanistan and earning a Bronze Star and CIB Combat Infantry Badge. His service journey continued after the military, transforming into a mission of empowering others through physical fitness and mental resilience. As the owner of Liberty Performance Training in Phoenix, Arizona, Rich has shaped the lives of both tactical and athletic communities, achieving remarkable success beyond the gym. Rich is an esteemed author who pours his rich experiences into the pages of his fantasy series, Calamity's Window. He's also a dedicated advocate for veterans, extending his support through his nonprofit organization, Quality Resilience Fitness, which I'm proud to be a member of. But another aspect of Rich's journey that resonates deeply with me, he's at the forefront of pioneering work in psychedelic integration and addiction recovery coaching. We both embarked on this path exploring profound healing and transformation. Rich's dedication to his field stems from his transformative experiences and deep desire to guide others through their healing journeys. Rich Mulder is more than a fitness expert or a military veteran. He's a visionary who constantly evolves and embraces new personal and professional growth frontiers. Today, he joins us in our very first episode and my very first guest to share his multifaceted journey, offering insights that resonate with every listener seeking a new life, purpose, and direction. So let's dive in and warmly welcome my friend and true strategic veteran, Rich Mulder.
Thanks, brother, man. That's a super humbling intro. Thank you.
Yeah, man. No, dude, you mean a lot to me, man. We got to share that a really incredible journey in July, and since then you've been there, right? Like always encouraging, always behind me, and you didn't know me from anybody else when we went on that trip, and so I'm super honored to have you here. I'm super grateful you decided to do this, and I'm really excited to see what kind of lessons we can teach other veterans in our conversations.
That's my pleasure, man. Yeah, it's cool thing to kind of launch with. That journey was something else, man.
It was Dave. We'll get into all that, I'm sure, but let's just start from the beginning, man. I just kind of want to take this on a really linear journey for you. So let's just start, give us your background, man. Let's start from the beginning and share some experiences from your upbringing that kind of shaped you into who you are today.
A lot of directions you could go with that. I was born in Canada, actually. Some people still don't know that about me. Yeah, see that looking.
What?
Yeah, I was born in Canada, and my dad was always like the picture of the American dream to me. Uprooted his family when I was very young. I was like 4. Moved away from family. We were like hillbillies from Canada, man. And we moved down to Arizona, and I can't imagine. I didn't think about it when I was a kid growing up, but now I look back and I'm like, man, the courage that it takes to move your family away from the rest of your family into a brand new country, take a new job spanning 2 countries across so much area. We moved from Ontario to Arizona. Man, it's just pretty remarkable, And so, yeah, we moved there when I was very young. I never had any interest in the military at all, really. I was always playing sports. I'm a big sports player. My parents got me into, I played piano growing up. It's funny. I was like always mad about it because they were like forcing me to practice and stuff until I got into high school and I realized that piano could impress some chicks. And so I was thankful for it then.
Isn't that the story, right?
Right. And then, yeah, so, and I didn't really get interested in the military until 9/11. I was a freshman in high school. Day I'll never forget, just like I'm sure same as with you. I was walking up for morning announcements, and my buddy Jimmy Mann, he's passing me on the way down. He's like, dude, they just hit the Twin Towers. I didn't even know what the Twin Towers were at that point. And then we spent the rest of that day, watching the videos. We went to our mentors' homes, watched all that happening. And I knew then, I was like, oh man, like I'm going, like I'm going as soon as I can. I'm going over there, to fight them. Like whoever did this to us, I felt like personally attacked. And it was my parents that kind of like slowed me down a little bit. And they were, letting me explore some other things. And they told me about the military academies. I got accepted into a summer program there as a rising junior. I went to West Point, and it was just like beyond incredible. This was the coolest place I'd ever been. Still to this day, like I feel so honored to have went to school there, let alone visited, and yeah, so they kind of convinced me to go that West Point route. Yeah. And then there's the rest was history.
Man, it's awesome to hear, first of all, learn that you're from Canada, actually.
Right.
I assume you claim Arizona as home, knowing that's where Liberty Performance is. And,
Sure.
didn't until recently, you just moved away from there. But I also grew up a lot the same way you did, in the respect that, like, my dad was my hero and the American dream and all of that. It's still very close to me today, and a lot of my why and what's driving me forward. And then it's also, I think it's really cool to get to do a deep dive with you, because, I do feel super connected to you, and our stories kind of line up a lot, in that I was a sophomore when 9/11 happened. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was getting ready to go to school and didn't even know what the Twin Towers were. And I'm like leaving the house, turning the TV on, and, that shaped my want to join the military as well, amongst some other things that we won't get into because this isn't about me, but I definitely relate with all of that. My real question is like, I explored the military academies as well, and West Point was definitely at the top of that list, along with obviously Annapolis, because I think it's probably a close second. How did you make peace with knowing that you're going to the military for 4 years before you're actually going to the military? And was that an easy decision for you? Like, what kind of helped you make that decision? Because that was what stopped me from doing the service academy.
You must have had a great deal more foresight than I did, or forethought rather. Man, I didn't even know what I was getting into. I really didn't. I mean, I just saw the prestige and the allure, and I was very much enamored by that. And I think a part of me saw what I could become, and I wanted it. I wanted to be the best version of myself, for sure. And so it didn't matter. I was like, I want to be a career military officer. Obviously that didn't work out. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit, but, yeah, I mean, when I showed up that day one, I was so in over my head, just over and over. I was like, what the fuck did I just get myself into? I had no clue. I remember laying in bed. The day was a whirlwind. That first day, our day, the report day. And first day was a whirlwind. I didn't know how to do hospital corners on my bed. I didn't know anything about anything. And I just remember hearing taps playing. I didn't even know what taps was. I'm like, is someone playing a freaking French horn in the hallway? I had no clue. I didn't sleep a wink. Yeah. And Grant, that first year at West Point was, man, it was tough. That was a really tough.
What they call you? What, greenies? Is that what you guys are?
Plebe. Yeah.
Plebes. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I knew that. We all, as enlisted guys, tend to make fun of the officers, right? Like there's that friendly rivalry, but there are a few exceptions. I always found that obviously the best officers were the ones that were enlisted first and then went to the officers. And then I found out very close second was West Point graduates. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, rivalry aside. I had the pleasure of a long career serving with a lot of different officers in a lot of different capacities. And West Point definitely cranks out some quality product. They also, the flip side of that coin, they crank out some real assholes that just don't get it. So, that's awesome. Let's just move straight into your time at West Point. What did you find at West Point that really shaped you moving forward and kind of pushed you, kind of down the path that you've ended up on now, if anything? I imagine there was several things, and I know there's a lot more, from your time in service that definitely shaped your path. But I feel like going to such a prestigious academy and having the opportunity to be such a piece of history, right, and attribute to that. There was something that you found there that really kind of pointed you like a beacon towards, the path that you're on now.
Yeah, what you're saying, that tradition and being a part of that legacy, as much as you don't really think about it on a day-to-day basis while you're attending the school, it does mean a lot, and it is something to fall back on. It is really important. And I think the further away I get from, my graduation was in 2009, the further away I get from that, the more important it actually resonates with me. But I think like one of the main things about West Point that really got me going in a different direction than I had been going, was the level of competition. I was kind of, I know I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or something like that, but in high school, I was kind of like the guy, right? Like I was, prom king, homecoming king, captain of the basketball team, played football, did track, like popular,
big fish in a little pond type
all
stuff.
that good stuff, right? And then I got to West Point, kind of being this cocky little 17-year-old that thought I was still king shit, and I just got such a smackdown. And I needed that so badly at that time in my life. I was just such a small fish. Like, not only was I not the top of my class, like I was near the bottom at the beginning. Like I wasn't more physically fit. I wasn't smarter. I wasn't funnier. I wasn't more handsome. I was with all these people that were better than me at everything. And so it raised my game so much, because I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand about West Point is everything is based on your class rank, like everything. And it's a constant competition with your peers to be better. And so you get graded military. You have a military pillar, a physical pillar, and an academic pillar. My first semester for sure, I wasn't good in any of them. I had bad grades. I was not good in any of them. And it took a serious amount of willpower and change of habits and learning and evolution on my part to like, I ended up graduating like somewhere around like 300, I think, in my class. We started off with, I think, and we ended with less than people that graduated.
And so you finished in the top 5th. That's great.
I think, yeah, it's like pretty close to top third-ish, but yeah. And but you're good enough, right? Like way better than I started. But it was that level of competition that like it just brought out the best in me, like a little crucible by fire kind of.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're saying is, it was like you got humbled at like just the right time, right? Like, because I know my experience, as an enlisted dude, I got to my unit like 14 days after they came home from the invasion of Iraq. Yeah. So like just life for me as a private was miserable. And I was that way too. I was a cocky son of a bitch. You know what I mean? Going in, like I'm a 3-sport athlete, letter winner in all 4 years of high school, whatever. And man, did they humble me. No combat patch. This is the BDU days, no flag even. And it was rough. Yes. So I know what you're talking about when you say that you were humbled at just the right time, because I think we both probably needed that in our lives at that time. And it does shape you moving forward. Speak a little bit about too, because I think it's very relevant to what we'll get into later. Did you at West Point, because I'm not familiar with how it works, is it kind of like the traditional college model where you get to pick a field of study and just like any other college, or was it more geared towards military? And if so, did you know when you were going in that physical fitness was something that you wanted to study?
So it's different and it's the same. So there are a lot of core classes that you have to take. So everyone has to take chemistry, physics, and there's a lot of military, like you're taking a military class, whether it's tactics or like learning the symbols or the whole, you're taking military classes the whole way through. You're also taking physical development classes the whole way through. And then you have your core classes, like the chemistries, the physics, there are literature classes, a couple of different like core, everyone has to take them. And then you do pick your major your sophomore year, like going into your sophomore year. And I loved physical fitness at the time, but they didn't offer kinesiology until the year after I chose my major. So I actually didn't major in kinesiology. I majored in military history. And that was based on a piece of advice that I'm really glad I took. And it was just, the advice was choose a major that is going to make your time at West Point less like suffering. And so I was fascinated. I liked reading. I still do. I love history. I chose military history. And believe it or not, like that degree has helped me so much, really, because it taught me how to write. And I really appreciate how tough that degree really was. Man, like if you're at West Point, the history department is hardcore, man. Like they are hardcore, like for obvious reasons. It's I think their slogan is like, where West Point, where history is taught by the ones who helped make it,
I like that. That's a good one.
It's pretty cool. And yeah, it was a really, really cool experience. So anyways, yeah, you do that, and then you have to also take an engineering track. And so I took civil engineering classes as well.
Nice. All right. So let's fast forward. Obviously you made it through West Point. You said you graduated somewhere in the top 300 of your class. Congratulations. That's impressive.
Somehow managed not to get kicked out.
How did it come about when you decided, to choose your branch? Were you just drawn to the infantry? Was it, like I hear so many other officers' stories, they just got detailed to the infantry and maybe have a different, you guys call them MOSs still? What do you guys call them?
Yeah.
So there's still an MOS.
Still an alpha.
I know we had a chemo who was actually branched infantry one time and had to do the MPC thing for battalion for a couple of years. And he was like, I just need to change my branch altogether because I've missed out on so many leadership opportunities with the infantry that it doesn't make sense to keep that as my branch. And so I've always been fascinated, like how it's chosen for you guys, like how your career tracks go. Like I walked into the recruiting office, watched the Ranger video and said, that's what I want to do. And they're like, sweet, we got you,
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's not that different at West Point, like you, again, drawn to the allure, you see the guys with the Ranger tabs, the air assault badges and the airborne badges and all this stuff. And, yeah, I mean, it's based on your class rank, but basically if you want infantry, you're going to get infantry. It's not, it's a lot of people do branch infantry. A lot of really smart guys with super high class ranks, they branch infantry because they're drawn to it. And that was the case for me, it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's like a pissing contest or like a dick measuring contest, but it was like, yeah, you're going to school with a bunch of alpha males and you're like, yeah, like there's a certain amount of, culture like that kind of pushes you into that. My friends and I, like my best friends, I'm like my best friends in the world. We almost all went infantry, and yeah, I mean, like we're just let's go.
I imagine it's just like me. Like it's just like, yep, that's what I want to do.
Exactly.
It's like even hard to explain thinking about it. 21 years later, like I was just drawn to it and knew that's what I wanted to do. And it kind of is a dick measuring contest, like you said, because I tell people all the time, especially from other branches, because they don't seem to get it. The Army is very distinctly separated into two different categories. You have the infantry, and then you have the rest of the Army. And they are night and day different in the way that everything is done. And I can remember when we would get, for lack of a better term, and I don't mean this derogatory, but just pogues, right? That would come to our units and they're like, this is how you guys do things? It's like, yeah, man, this is how it is all the time. And they're just like culture shock, right? So that's awesome. So you graduate West Point, infantry branch, ready to go get a platoon, fresh butter bar. Where'd you end up?
So, so I did air assault while I was still a cadet. Got my air assault stuff, and then I went to, you do your officer basic. So we're at Benning, right? You do your officer basic, you do your infantry officer basic course. I did Ranger school. That freaking took years off my life, I think.
It sure does.
And I did that, and then what else? I did airborne school while I was there. A couple of different schools. I did like a striker leader course because I was going to a striker brigade. It was funny. We got out of Ranger school and we're all just like a mess. I went in at 195 pounds. I got out. I was 161. I'm 6'1". It's like I was just rail thin, and just a mess, like you don't come out of Ranger school in good shape. And so we show up to our little like pool or whatever, and they tell us that, if it's like a Thursday or something, all right, take the weekend. You guys start striker leader course on Monday. There's a PT test on Tuesday. And we're like, okay, like, and so, I mean, all of us failed it. Like, I think I ran like an 18-minute 2-mile or something crazy. Because I was
like shit the whole time.
I'm like, I can't even move my knees, man. Like, this sucks. But so we did that. And then I went up to Fort Lewis, Washington after I was done with all the schools and everything. I took my first platoon. So this would have been in late 2002.
Okay, so you got to Lewis right before I did because I got there in January of 11.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And then the unit I was with 138 Infantry. They were just getting back from Iraq when I got there. And it's funny you mentioned, brand new butter bar. Like the things that they don't tell you that you're going to do as a lieutenant are hilarious, right? Like my first assignment or whatever. This guy, he got redeployed a little bit early, came back, and staff sergeant and him and his wife were splitting up, and I don't know what the actual story was, like somebody cheated on somebody and all this, craziness. And he was, I felt so bad for this guy. This guy had been deployed 1,000 times and, he had freaking seen some serious, terrible shit, man. And he was struggling with it. And, his wife took like a crowbar to the floors of the house and emptied the whole thing out. And so there was this like all this, and I'm like I think I was 22. I was 22 years old. I don't have like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I'm supposed to like help cancel this guy and tell him what to do. And the first thing he does, it's so funny, man. I'll never forget it. He looks at me and he's like, does a little tab check on my arm. And he goes, at least you're not some tabless monkey. And I was like, that's like one of my first experiences at my unit. And I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, man, because it's like they can't really know to tell you those things, right? Because it just, I don't know, it's just such a different culture, right? Like I remember being my first day at my first unit, I go to check in at Alpha Company 27 Infantry 3rd ID. And I can remember standing at the CQ desk, like, hey, I was sent from battalion. I'm looking for first sergeant. First sergeant's not here. Stand at parade rest in this corner, right? And then, for whatever reason, the battalion, it was either commander or sergeant major decided he needed to walk into the company at that time. I'm completely lost and just have no idea what's going on. I'm already just standing at parade rest. So, it all ends and they leave and, the staff sergeant walks up to me and I can't remember his name to save my life, but he just walks up to me and he's like, Peters, welcome to the Army, man. This is how it goes. He's like, can you do me a favor? And he twists his leg all the way around. He said, the bottom of my foot itches. Can you scratch it? And I'm just like standing there like, how is anybody supposed to prepare you for, first of all, that kind of morbid humor, but also like it took me a second to really realize what was going on. Yeah. Like this dude stepped on an IED, lost his leg, and now he's happy running around making jokes. Obviously that shaped the next 12 years of my life, right? And so I definitely relate to what you're saying with, having to show up, because that story you just told, for anybody that's listening to this, that's ultra common and it's sad. It's so sad when you have to deal with it. And, I was probably dealing with a lot of the same things, in tandem with you at the same time, just because my career started in 2003. So I was already a staff sergeant by the time you were coming in as a butter bar. And so, yeah, that's awesome, man. It's awesome to hear stories like that and know that we kind of all experience the same things. So let's talk about, you get to Fort Lewis, you're at 138, you're not set up, right? Like you haven't been prepared, like you're just figuring it out. Walk me through like how all that went for you, because I know you did a deployment as well, right? So like kind of leading up to that, was it pretty quick that you deployed? Was it a little bit of train up that you had, familiarize yourself with the platoon, learn the guys? How did that go?
So the timeline was kind of interesting, right? So I had 12 months of platoon leader time with my first platoon, and attack company went awesome. I learned a lot, and I learned the most from my platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class Ryan Longacre. That dude, they just don't make them like that anymore. I'm sure he's a first sergeant right now, master's. I don't know. He's doing something good. Guy was just so impressive. I learned so much from him. And so I had 12 months platoon leader time there. And then I went to Ranger Assessment Selection Program to be in regiment. And even to go there is a ton, right? Like it was such a cool opportunity. But like that's what I wanted to do, right? Like I wanted to kick down doors and shoot bad guys in the face. Like that's what I wanted to do. I got there, right? I get through RASP, and the whole time I'm telling myself, all I got to do is make it to the board, right? If I make it to the board, I'm good. I fail my board, and I don't get selected for a regiment. And, that's probably a story for, I don't know, maybe I can tell it. I'm not sure, but it was felt very political that I did not get selected. My sounding board when I was in the military was the NCO Corps. Whenever I had NCOs telling me things, that's who I tried to listen to the most. Officers are fine, right? But they see things a lot of times through a different lens. And the NCOs are the ones that really know what's going on. And to have the NCOs that I went to RASP with tell me, oh man, they fucked that up. You should have been in. That was enough for me. But anyways, it was kind of a defining moment in my Army career, because I knew after that I wanted to get out. I was like, I will never do this, because I hate having my entire future in one person's hands. And man, it was interesting. I failed my board. I got 2 votes yes, 2 votes no. You need 3. to get in. And so the guy, the battalion commander I would have worked for, he comes in and he goes, and at this point I had never deployed, right? So I think that kind of, it definitely set me back a little bit, right? But that's not why I didn't get selected. And so he comes in, I'm in the stew room afterwards and I'm thinking to myself, like, what the fuck am I going to do now? Like my career is over. Like I was really blown away and I just felt horrible, right? I was ashamed. There was all these different things. And he comes in, he's like, he's like, I want you to know that your personality develops until you're 27. So you still have time to work on yourself. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, fuck you, man. Like, fuck you. And then he goes, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back to your unit. I want you to deploy, come back, and I want you to come back and serve in the Rangers as a company commander. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, you gotta be fucking crazy if you think like you can like derail my career this badly, this early, and then expect me to come want to work for this organization, And so I get back to that's a kind of long-winded story. I get back to my unit and my battalion commander, who's awesome, man, Colonel Chad Sundum, awesome guy. He's like, hey, he's like, you probably want to get out of the Army now, huh? And I'm like, yes, sir. And he goes, he goes, so what do you want to do until then? And we were gearing up for a deployment to Afghanistan. I was like, I want to take a platoon in combat. And he's like, all right. He goes, well, I can't give you scouts. He had already given scouts, but I can give you mortars. He's like, you want it? And I'm like, yep. And he's like, okay, mortars are yours. And so I had about a month to get to know these guys before we deployed. And man, I fucking love them so much. They were the best, man. They were the fucking best.
And that's where you met Jake, right?
No, Jake was in my first platoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so for those that are listening, I was always in the assumption for officers, RASP was a one and done kind of thing, right? Just like selection, correct? Like you don't get to go back, or is it like a provision like you can be invited back?
No. So anytime that you have to go back, anytime there is anytime you're taking a different position, right? So, and unless I think it's called, what's it called? Lack of merit, LOM. If you LOM, then you're done. You never come back. But I made it through. I just failed my board.
Yeah. Yeah. And I relate so much to what you're saying, like them controlling your career based off of, I mean, we all know it's political. It's always been political. I think you spoke to that a little bit when you said the NCOs were always your sounding board, because the NCOs don't play the politics shit. Right? Like all they care about is the guys, right? Like the guys and the mission. And that always matters more than all the fuck games that go on at the top. And so it's really cool to hear somebody that I respect, who was an officer in the same time frame that I served, who does appreciate NCOs, because I even think you'll speak to this. There's a lot of officers out there that could give a fuck less about the NCOs. And I think it's sad, especially with a time when I was in, man. I mean, you're coming in as a brand new lieutenant. I've got 3 combat deployments under my belt.
Yep.
And that's, to me, that's experience that you just don't get from reading a textbook or going to college for 4 years. You know what I mean? I've been there. I've done it. I've seen it every which way kind of thing. Let's move on, because I really want to get to all the juicy, what you're doing now stuff. So the big question is, obviously you did the deployment. That comes with its own hardships, right? You got a Bronze Star. I can't speak to your combat experience. I know a lot of officers, it was an automatic thing to get a Bronze Star just for deploying. That always pissed me off. I'm not saying you didn't earn yours. I'm sure, knowing 138 and, where you were at the time, like, my Afghanistan deployment in 2012 was awful. It was by far and away the worst one of the 4 that I did. And it was so bad, in fact, that it greatly overshadows the other 3. I don't remember a lot of things from the other 3 because the Afghanistan deployment sticks with me so much. But speak to some of the experiences, because you were in for a total of what, 6 years? 5 years. Okay. So you owed the Army, the total 5 for sending you to West Point?
5 plus 3. So you can either do your extra 3 active. I opted for the individual ready reserve.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's cool. So speaking to your whole 5-year career, let's really dive into how your military experience influenced your approach first to life and then really to business, because I'm really curious to get into your entrepreneurial journey, right? Because I think, I know I didn't grow up knowing I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It wasn't something that I discovered until well into my 30s, right? And it's just, very much how my life shaped me and whatnot. So I always like to know, like, first of all, did you always know you wanted to run your own business? Did the RASP thing really kind of shape, start planting the seed of taking back control of your own life and having that control to really, manifest your own destiny, if you will?
I think I've always kind of been a little bit on the rebellious side, which is funny that I joined the Army in the first place because
Same.
I try to stand out of it pretty hard. But no, I didn't know that I wanted to run my own thing. I didn't even know what I was going to do really. When I got out, I just knew that so I really fell in love with like proper weightlifting when I was deployed. And I got freaking huge when I was deployed. It was awesome. It was like 240. I put on like 30 pounds. It was awesome because we were just patrolling and working out and sleeping and eating. That's it. Like it was just, there's nothing else to do. Like, let's go. I watched the same movie. I watched Predator like 5 times on my deployment.
Yeah, the simple life, man. The simple. I loved that life. It was great.
It's great until it's not, right?
Right.
But, yeah, so I really fell in love with it then, and I was obsessed with weightlifting and training, and really, really cool, right? And so when I got out, I knew I wanted to coach. Maybe I wanted to coach basketball. Maybe I wanted to. I just knew I wanted to coach. I just loved working with people, and that's something that the Army like really reinforced in me. And I just didn't really know where to start. So I knew I was going to go back and go to school. So I chose ASU. I knew I could get into ASU even without a physical fitness major in my undergrad. I figured I could get in with my credentials, and I did. And it brought me back to Arizona, which was awesome. And so I worked at LA Fitness for like 3 months, and I was like, this is so stupid. And like, not only is this organization just wasting my time, not paying me anything, it's like they're just stealing people's money too. And I'm like, this is ugly, man. And so I quit. And that's when I started, and I took all these clients with me, man. Like that, I'm like, and anyone, and they try to tell you in this business, like, don't poach people's clients. Like, yeah, don't poach other people's clients. Like, don't be an asshole. But like, if you're a better coach and they want to come with you, then you're not poaching. You're just better than other people. So there's nothing wrong with that. And so I never felt any kind of like I did any kind of injustice to a big corporation like LA Fitness. And I started this tiny little, 1,000 square foot facility on 19th Ave and Camelback, which is like pretty freaking ghetto place in Phoenix, if anyone is familiar. And so that's where it was born, right? Like this little idea to kind of help me get through grad school, figure out what I was doing, like keep me on my feet. I was charging like $30 a session, and I was doing that while I was getting my master's degree. I was teaching a little bit, and I had a really cool opportunity at a place called the Fisher Institute, where I was working with Chip Gosewich. She was one of my big time mentors. I was one of the assistants for the NFL camp there in the summer of 2015, I believe.
So let's back up a little bit. It's awesome to hear how you got it started, and we're definitely going to go over more of that. But a big piece of why I started this, why I'm doing this, is it's really been called to my attention that transition right out of the Army it really is, I think, as I'm learning, probably the greatest loss that any service member will ever experience in their entire life. And, at least for me, completely gone. Everything I knew from the age of 17 to the age of 30 is now just lost to me. So, speaking about transition, it is a profound change. And so, you mentioned working at LA Fitness and the feelings that came with working there. I can very much relate to that because, having done 4 deployments and served my country for, 12 and a half, almost 13 years, I don't want to say it's this sense of entitlement because I never felt entitled to anything, but I just found myself in these positions where I'm like, what am I doing? I'm better than this. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like not to put down the business or those people that are working those jobs who, just don't, I guess, have the same mentality or whatever that we do. So, speaking to some of that, like what were some of your big challenges during that period? And I can imagine working at LA Fitness after being an officer leading a platoon to combat is a pretty profound change.
Yeah. That being said, like those jobs exist for a reason, right? And they're good jobs for a lot of people. And so I don't even think it was bad for me. I don't think anything that happened to me was like bad for me. You know what I mean? Like it taught me, I tried to learn from it, and it helped me like refine my path, like refine where I'm going. And that's always happening. That's still happening today, always. Right. And I will say though that I didn't feel like I was, better than anyone else per se, because I was kind of lost, man. Like I
Yeah.
was just trying to be a good coach, and I was pretty new to that game too. And so, but what I did feel was a bit unhinged, and I felt like very impulsive. I was like, I had all this like stuff in front of me now. I could do anything I wanted, right? And I didn't have there were no shackles on me. Like they cut the chains off. And so I got a little crazy, man. I was drinking way too much, and I was partying with like college, and it wasn't like, and there was a lot of that in the military too, right? But this was somehow different, and there was no longer that accountability that was enforced with that team. I was by myself, and I watched my first marriage kind of go up in flames, and a lot of that is my fault. And I kind of look back though, and I'm like, it's just where I was at the time, and now because of all these things, right? Like I am in the exact place that I'm supposed to be, and it's getting better. So I don't look back at it with regret, but I do like to think about it. Kind of, I guess, just like ask myself where I could have done what I could have done differently, and what tools I was lacking at the time to actually make better decisions or go about things a little bit more respectfully. A thousand different things like that. So I think impulsive.
Looking back on those earlier moments from our lives, understanding now, right, that we don't need to regret those things because they shaped the person that we have become now, right? And it's like ultra important to shift your mindset to that, instead of looking at this happened to me, this happened for me, right? Because I'm same situation, blew up my first marriage, blew up my second marriage, not in a good way. Unhinged is a great word for it, right? And I think this story, even though it is your story, it's also my story. It's also, several thousand other veterans' stories. And it sucks, man, because, as you and I you've already completed the course. I'm in the course now, learning about integration and different tools that we weren't taught about, right? Could have saved a lot of us a lot of time. And so it's great to hear you speak about that, because, that's where we all should strive to get, looking back and seeing how that served us and shaped us and understanding it versus, dwelling on it, regretting it, wishing it away. So I guess you already covered this question, so we can kind of move on. The biggest question I get, and I think you may be a great person to speak to this, is because you bought a building or leased a building in the hood, right? In a not so great area after you realize, LA Fitness isn't for you. The most common question I get when people do discovery calls with me, looking at coaching opportunities or just ideas, want to start a business. And I specifically focus on digital businesses because I don't like the brick and mortar side. However, that's the route you chose to go. And I think you're perfect to speak to this, because most people ask me, where do I start? I don't know where to start. And it's such a, I don't want to say loaded question, but it's not an easy question to answer because everybody is so different. And usually my advice is just start. Just figure something out, pick something and just take an action, right? And so is that how you went into starting the gym, or was it, gradual? Like kind of walk us through that and like let us know like your thought process behind it.
Yeah, so it is a very loaded question. It's a tough question to answer, and it's different for everybody, and I can only speak for myself. And what happened with me is, yes, I started Liberty Performance Training, right, the brand, in 2015. And I had this 1,000 square foot thing, personal studio. I was just having one-on-ones in there. I was training some softball players. I was kind of all over the map, right? But it wasn't until 2017 that I really like went for it. And what that kind of looked like is I kind of felt just like that none of these options that were available to me were the right thing for me. And so out of the Fisher Institute, I got offered a spot with the Cardinals under Buddy Morris. And this position would have been like just the bottom of the barrel, man. Like bottom of the barrel, like pay was shit, hours were shit, no job security. Like you're basically a freaking intern until we tell you otherwise, And I was like, man, I love working with athletes, but I already sucked shit in the military for almost 10 years, man. I don't need to do that again. And so I opened up the location that Liberty Performance Training is in today in April of 2017. And yeah, and it's so funny. I look back on that and I'm just like, I don't know how anyone even gave me the time of day. Like I just knew I liked training strongman and I liked coaching and I needed a space to do it. And yeah, and so I opened up this spot. It's like, 3,300 square foot. And when you look at pictures then as to what it looks like now, it's just like, it's so cool to see the evolution that space has made.
And I think that explanation really speaks to what it is to just start, because I'm finding out in the infancy of my digital business, the more I just take an action, the more I learn, the more the actual business itself starts to take shape, right? And you get a clearer picture of what you're supposed to be doing. And then you have this like aha moment where you level up, and then the cycle starts all over again. It's just higher level problems, right? And you're completely lost all over again. And you just figure it out. You just start talking to people. You I don't know. It's just this really weird transition, right? Like, is that kind of similar to how, the evolution of Liberty Performance went? It sounds, it's like you didn't know what you were doing and you just did it and figured it out.
I'm still trying to figure it out today. It's like, it's a constant thing like that. But the thing is, like, people can smell bullshit on you. And if you're not full of shit and you're passionate about things and you know enough to do some damage in the field, then you can definitely put one foot in front of the other and just start walking up the mountain. Just start. And you will get there.
And keep showing up. Because it's going to get hard and you're going to be out of breath, right? And your legs are going to be on fire, but you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And it's just like magic.
And so when I founded Liberty, it was based on these three tenets, right? Effort, consistency, intelligence. And if you can apply those, because we're really good at doing one of those things, right? Like, oh, I'm super consistent in my eating, right? Or I'm putting all this effort into the gym and I'm not consistent, so my gains fall off. But I think, like, if you can bring all of them in under an intelligent plan, and then you can apply effort towards that intelligent plan, and then you can just continue along that plan, and man, like, nothing can stop you. It doesn't matter. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have, like, major financial losses. You're gonna, people are gonna screw you over in business. Like, this is all part of it. And as long as you just keep on walking, that shit bounces off, man.
It's so great to see somebody who is so far along on their journey, right? You've got Liberty Performance, which I assume is still growing at rapid rates, and then you've got the QR thing, which we'll get into in a little bit. You're also a published author. I think you're working on the third book, right?
Yeah, when I can. I need to do it.
Well, we could get into all that, but I think it's just so important to hear, somebody who has found that success with their first gym and has moved into other opportunities. It's very much my philosophy. It's literally just show up, and failure, it's absolutely necessary to find that success that owning your own business brings, because it's only through those failures that we learn the lessons that we need to progress. And I can't say it enough. And I know, I'm building on LinkedIn, and so you see it all over LinkedIn at this point, right? Like, people talk about failure being essential, but I don't think they really articulate it well enough. And I think you just really did articulate it in a great way with those three simple things: effort, consistency, and in an intelligent way. And it doesn't even have to be the most intelligent way ever, because there's 1,000,001 ways to build something. You just need to have a shell of a plan.
Yep.
On
my coaching philosophy, right? It's always sort of the same two things: give a shit and know your shit. And if you do those two things, like, man, yes, there's all kinds of other things that you can do, right? And fill in the spaces. But if you give a shit and you know your shit, you're going to be all right. Like, you are going to be all right.
Yeah. I love it, man. So starting your own business is a daunting task, right? Like, there's a lot of fear associated with that. So can you first elaborate? Were you scared when you left LA Fitness and, went out and signed that lease on that first building? Walk us through those emotions, and then really, really kind of hammer home how you managed to just see that through, because I think that's such an important part of that setback that people just don't understand, right? Like, they just can't get around their own fear.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man. For me, the fear didn't come until a little bit later. I was just so excited. And I was so excited. I was so passionate about this. I knew I wanted to be a coach. I thought this was the best way to do it. I was willing to work my ass off for it. And I did, man. I fucking worked hard. And it's funny. Now we've got like a little punch in code and it's open 24 hours and go in there whenever. But at the beginning, we didn't have that. We just had one key and, and one employee. And that was me. And I was there from, 5 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. every day. And then on Sundays, I was there in the morning. I was there all the time. I was taking naps on the freaking floor, like hoping that someone was going to knock on my door, And so it was just crazy, right? But I didn't have a ton of fear. I was just excited. I was just passionate. The fear came later that first year. And I was like, holy shit. I remember it was Christmas time. And I told my parents. My parents have always been like so supportive of me. They've really like given me a ton of opportunities in this life. I'm very grateful for it. And that's something that I've really come to terms with later in my life as well. Actually, after our trip, that was a big thing that I dealt with. And so I told him in December of 2016, I'm like, man, I'm gonna go bankrupt. I'm almost out. Like I'm maxed out. Everything is like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money coming in, And so they kind of listened to me, whatever. And then my dad, he tells me, and this was like a week later, my dad tells me, he's like, stop being a fucking idiot, Rich. He's like, cut your losses. Like with your background, you could walk into a 6-figure job tomorrow, like suck it up and go back to work like the rest of us. And I was like, oh fuck, man. I'm not prone to bouts of depression. And I was depressed, man. I was depressed. And for like 2 weeks, I'm just like, oh my God, is this really what I'm going to have to do? And it was a stark reality that I was facing. I was terrified of it. And I had this like epiphany though. And I was sitting at the gym. It was like 9 or 9:30 at night or something like that. Only went in there and I'm looking at my little shitty Excel sheets that I'm tracking my finances on at the time. And it like dawns on me. It's like, okay, what's the problem here? The problem is that you are not making enough money. So go make money, like make money. And it just like this light bulb like went off in my head. And I'm like, fuck, like I've been concentrating so hard on like coaching and just like being at the gym, I haven't been focused on like, how do I generate money? Right. And then it was like the whole freaking world opened up, man. Like the next day, 2 people that I still am in contact today that are like, important to me, Daniel Camacho and Lauren Laskowski, they walk into the gym that next day. I didn't find them. They found me somehow. And I ended up taking Lauren to, she's the first nationals. She's awesome. Daniel Camacho, I never trained him directly, but he's still a member at Liberty. He's one world's strongest firefighter. And just incredible, right? And then they kind of opened up a door to new people. And then they started telling other people. And it just like this little snowball effect started happening. And at the same time, I was realizing that I have to be a little bit more of a businessman. And coaching is awesome. That's always going to be a part of my life. But I do have to address business too.
Right. So you got to the point where, it was scale or give it up, right? Like you had to figure out how to I always call it, I want to work on the business, not in the business,
Yeah.
right? And so like very much for you, especially most brick and mortars, anybody who wants to buy a franchise, this is very much going to be your reality is you're going to spend 2 to 5 years probably working in that business all of the time until you really nail down how it operates, what the most efficient way is. So you're making enough money, paying off, that note in the case of a franchise or, getting your finances in order in the case that you're leasing a building and something doesn't happen, right? Then you're going to be forced to figure out how to scale. And it sounds like that's really where the driving factor of your fear is I've never done this before. I don't know how to do this, right? But then you just have this epiphany moment, while you're working in your business, like, no, I have to work on the business. And then, people start coming in and it's exactly what happened in my business with the strategic veteran. It's like, I was given an opportunity. I capitalized on that opportunity. People flocked to me and I learned and now I'm, next steps, right? So that's awesome. That's such an awesome, like way to be, faced with like a major decision, because this could be a very different conversation had you listened to your dad's advice.
Yeah, and I know he was just telling me the best he could, and it's fascinating, man. It's a fascinating thing to think about.
Let's talk about something else I think that's really important for transitioning veterans or veterans who have already transitioned, who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs. There's going to be a lot of people in your life that are going to hate. There's going to be a lot of people in your life that are going to be naysayers and say, why would you do that when you can go get that comfortable 6-figure job, right? I am 1,000,000% against that. I'm not going to judge you for that, but it is not a life for me. I very much want as much control of how I make money and how I live my life as possible, which is why I'm doing this. Speak to, how did you have to cut those people out of your life? Like, what changed for you in that regard? Because, like, for example, me, I moved out of Washington State because I felt stagnant, and I love my friends dearly, but I just had to remove myself from that situation in order to be better. Did you ever find yourself having to do that, or did that not come until later after the Peru trip?
I still don't think that I don't think that I've ever like cut someone out of my life. You know what I mean? I don't. I'm trying to think about how to put this exactly, because it's a really intricate question. And I think what I've started to learn as I get older is like, yeah, like not every, of course, people are going to tell me whatever they think, right? Like, and so I have the people that I listen to and the people that I don't. And it's like, yeah, sure. If you're some fucking person that I talk to on the day that you want to tell me this stuff, you can tell me and I'll nod my head and I'll listen, and that's fine. Maybe it's something great. I don't know. But if it's not, if it doesn't mean anything, then I'll be polite and respectful, and it's in one ear and out the other, you know? And I just love the idea, like you would never take criticism from a person that you wouldn't take advice from. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes some of that stuff like stings in the moment, right? But I don't know. I've gotten better, and it's something that I'm focused on getting better about. Is like letting that stuff kind of roll off my back. And and unfortunately, yeah, if you do choose to do your own thing, you are going to encounter that. I don't think it ever really stops. People are going to disagree with what you do, and that's okay. You know, like hopefully it's all right for them, you know, and like not everyone can be a part of your journey, and so that's okay. And you know, it's interesting, like a lot of people I think are too quick to cut people out of their lives, and they jump, oh, this must be it, this external thing, or this person is affecting me, this circumstance is affecting me, when really, like, it's about changing yourself. I think if you continually work on yourself, you're not going to get everything right. You're going to make mistakes. You can beat yourself up about them as much as you want. But the important thing is to continue working on yourself and try to do the right thing. And just know that if you do make a mistake, especially if you're trying, you're doing the best that you could with the tools that you had at the time that you made whatever decision you made. And so, yeah, I think the antidote to feeling like you need to cut people out of your life is just to do your own thing, and people will either follow or they'll go away. And to be okay with that. And that's a lot easier said than done.
I love that, because I said the words, cut those friends out of I didn't really cut them out of my life. They're still in the group chat on my phone,
Sure.
which is muted. I still participate. I still love them very dearly. I went and visited them twice last year. You know what I mean? Like, one was not great circumstances, but I was still there. It's just, I was moving a different direction.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I realized I had to separate myself from that,
Sure.
which is fine, right?
It's
But it
different
doesn't,
for everyone, like the journey is so different for every single person.
Yeah, but I definitely agree with you. The biggest, and I didn't learn this until Peru, obviously you know that, but the loving and respecting and taking care of yourself first it's such a huge, I preach it all over. Most of my content is about the mindset that you have to have if you want to own a business. And I think just for general everyday quality of life, you have to work on yourself. So I really appreciate you saying that and calling attention to that, because it's so great, man. It really, and I believe in it wholeheartedly, because I know from doing the work myself. Any advice for any of those veterans who are scared to start a business? What would you say to them?
I mean, whatever you're scared of, just think on it harder, and what are you actually scared of? What are you pinpoint exactly what it is you're scared of. If people are just like, well, I'm scared. Yeah, of course you're scared. Like, yeah, that's okay. But what are you actually scared of? And once you pinpoint that, like, is this something I really need to be afraid of? And how do I limit my fear to this? Like, what steps do I have to take to limit my fear towards this certain thing? Are you scared? Are you scared that your friends are going to dislike what you do? Deal with that yourself, And I think if you are scared, measure that fear against the passion that you have. If your passion weighs more than your fear, then you're okay. Like, that's okay. Go for it. Wait.
And the passion is so important, because if you're not passionate about it, you'll never see it through, ever.
And people will see through your bullshit. Like, if
absolutely,
you are not for real, people know. Just like just like I know, like everyone knows when they see a slimy salesman,
Well, and I think, like, kind of just a lesson, I've learned, because I used to be kind of that way, right? Like, you just feel gross when you talk about something you're not passionate right? Like sitting in front of this camera on this microphone talking about the entrepreneurship route with another veteran. I love this. I love this so much. Like this is the highlight of my day, as you well know, because I texted you as soon as I got up this morning.
That's
like,
awesome,
bro,
man.
it's go time.
That's awesome.
You know, so yeah, it's great to hear you hit on that passion piece because, and we're gonna get to this in a minute, you know, the why, right? Like, because without that, and it can't be money. Money cannot be the why, right?
Absolutely.
I want to talk about, you know, we obviously just got off of fear and how that is definitely a big inhibitor to people wanting to start their own businesses. And then here you are, right? And I don't know which came first. I assume you probably wrote your first 2 novels before you founded QRF Fit, right?
And I didn't found QRF.
Okay, that's on me.
Oh no, you're fine. I'm the executive director, but I'm not the founder. Yeah.
So I guess then that's kind of an invalid question because I was going to ask like what, I mean, I guess I can still kind of ask the question. You are the executive director. So, you know, in that, because we have a personal relationship, you know, you after Peru, you and your lovely wife bought a home in Oklahoma on some property with your beautiful dogs. And, can you speak a little bit about to what led you to the decision to feel like you were in a place where you could step away from Liberty Performance because it's now running the way that you saw it, right? So you obviously worked your ass off to get there, and I'm not trying to take anything away from your accomplishment, but what really pushed you into being the executive director for QRF Fit? And can you tell us a story of how you got involved with all of that? Like kind of the evolution of, I guess, you know, basically, you know, Liberty Performance hits this point where you feel like you can step away and, you know, it's going to run seamlessly and then into what you're currently doing.
Yeah, I love this question. I love this question so much. It's funny. And just to tap on the novels real quick too. That's just a passion project of mine. And it's so funny how I got started doing that. It's like all these things, right? And like this happens with entrepreneurship, I think a lot. And you kind of just find it by accident. And so I was reading Song of Ice and Fire. I was halfway through the 4th book, and it's pretty much blasphemy to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyways. I got through, and I'm like, I just don't like this that much. Like, I'm not into it. Like, it's too fluffy. And I was like, I could write a fucking book. And I you know, like kind of joking, and I write like a scenario, which ends up being the prologue to my first book. And then I show it to a couple people. Are like, oh, this is pretty cool. Maybe you should like write some more. And I was like, all right. And I wrote another scenario, totally different. And then all these things started like coming together in my head, and this like whole world, you know, imaginative world just unfolded. And I started to get obsessed with it. And I still, I really, really love it. I've been stretched a little bit thin. I think I haven't quite found the bandwidth for it again. But gosh, it's right there, man. I know it's right around the corner for me to like get that 3rd one done. So,
and I have to admit, at the risk of our camaraderie and friendship, they didn't resonate with me, man.
Yeah.
I felt not as strongly, and I will read them. I do still have them. I bought them, so they're on my Kindle. But I read a lot of military thriller for whatever reason. It's just constant. It just never ends for me. I just love it so much, and so I think that's a lot. I've never been into the fantasy stuff, right? So I felt the same way about Song of Fire and Ice. I was just like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Right. I just don't like it. But
I
still think it's super cool that you're an author. And that was really one of the coolest parts about watching your process in Peru is you probably wrote more than anybody. I'm almost willing to bet. Like, I remember you having to go borrow a charger for your Remarkable so that you could write more.
I wrote a lot, and it's like a little, you know, another little side project, man. I've been writing a book about that too. So it's, yeah. And now I feel like this journey, I feel like I was so young, or like such a rookie on this journey, that I decided to wait a little bit longer until I have some better words to use in that book. But yeah, I'm working on that too. So that's going to be fun. And actually, you know what the title is words that came out of your mouth, believe it or not. The title is Magic is Real. Yeah. So,
brother, that just gave me chills,
yeah,
man. Thank you so much.
But yeah, kind of cool. But
dude,
to go back to your other question, you know, probably the more important one.
No, it's all important, man.
Yeah.
And this is great for the audience because this is exactly how Rich and I are when we just talk regularly.
Yeah.
Like this, it's just tangents.
Yeah, exactly. And so. So when I got out of the military, I was like, I wanted nothing to do with the military anymore, right? I didn't want to talk to veterans. I didn't want to go to the VA. I didn't want to do anything that involved me thinking about the military. And I was very jaded by it. And that really stayed the same, up through, 2019. And then we started to do a couple of events with QRF. The Quality Resilience Fitness is the nonprofit that I'm involved with now. We did a couple of events with them. Really liked the founder, Chris Phillips, like awesome guy. Really, really wonderful story, which I'll tell in a second. But he was great. But we never really I never took the plunge, right? And then 22 rolled around. And being a gym owner in 20 was just crazy. I watched my entire worldview really change in front of me. A lot of things happened that I never thought I would ever see. I never thought that I would see so many people bending over like they did, man. And I couldn't believe it. And especially being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, I couldn't believe how many business owners were willing to bend over. And I just was very disappointed by the lack of backbone in this country. And maybe those are some harsh words to use, but it's how I feel. And the only people that I really saw, and I'm sure there's tons of exceptions, obviously, but the ones that really that really stood out to me, probably because I'm in this demographic, were veteran entrepreneurs. And they were saying the things that I was saying. And I'm a gym owner. This is where people get healthy. We're looking at, and by these statistics were very quick to come out. And of course you can never, who knows what you can trust and what you can't, I don't know. But it was obvious to me the whole time that if you are a healthy individual and you take care of yourself, you eat right, you exercise, you get sunlight, you sleep well, you drink water, then you still have a lot better chance against COVID, just like you do any other disease, than people with comorbidities. And this has only been confirmed since. And so to shut down the gyms, and really they went after gyms hard, and a lot harder than a lot of other spaces. It was really pretty ridiculous, honestly. And it really forced a whole different change of my worldview. And I found a lot of brotherhood again in this veteran community. So then that was the start of it, right? And so then we started welcoming Emerging Vets and Players, which is another nonprofit, into the gym. And this nonprofit was just so freaking cool, man. Like I'm so grateful to be a part of it. Every Wednesday night we host we were their 8th chapter. I think they have 9 or 10 chapters now. But we were their 8th chapter in Phoenix. And every Wednesday night we host a workout. Our coaches put them through a little workout. And it's like 20, 30 minutes, something like that. And then what's really powerful is afterwards we do the huddle. And the huddle, it's peer support. I just started to watch this huddle save people's lives. And I don't mean that lightly. Every single veteran, all of us know, have at least one story of a veteran. I have a hard time talking about this stuff, of a person or a veteran in our life who has committed. We all know somebody. And this is a massive, massive problem that we face. And so I saw this nonprofit, Emerging Vets and Players, actively saving people's lives and providing community for people that didn't have it. Providing a support network, providing counseling, providing a place to go. This was not just a place that people went on Wednesday nights and that was it. This was a true network of support, and it's what's needed in the world right now, especially by veterans in our country. And it really lit a fire under my ass, man. And I said, I have to get more involved. I can do more. I have to do more. And so I reached out to Chris, who founded QRF. And his whole backstory is just incredible. I mean, he had I forget the exact heart problem that he had, because he's doing PT one day, collapses, wakes up in the hospital. They're like, we got to do heart surgery on you. You got a pacemaker. And also you're getting chaptered out of the army, but medically chaptered, and they just never gave him any kind of support after that. Like, it's such a kick in the ass, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Like, that's the military grinds a lot, man. And so he found him, he tells the story better than I do. And Chris, I hope I do justice, man. But he found himself on the, with a roommate, with a cot and a TV, and basically nothing to his name, no direction, not knowing what he's going to do. And he tried to kill himself. And his roommate's wife came in, realized what he had done, and acted to save his life, and he survived. And he's so thankful that he survived. And he started finding community again through fitness when he founded QRF in 2020. And it's a really powerful story. It's a powerful reminder of how real this thing is. So I reached out to Chris and I said, hey man, like, what do you think about me getting involved? And you kind of like give me the keys to the car and let me drive it for a little bit, man. And he was like, okay, like what does that look like? He's excited because all he wants to do is help people. And I think he saw me, the same thing in me. And so that's what we did. We revamped this big coaching program that we have now. And that was partially because of the experiences that I had with Heroic Hearts Project. Leading up to Peru, I found that coaching to be incredibly important.
Probably the most important, right?
Yeah, if you were just to do that, if you were just to go to the jungle and take ayahuasca with some shamans down there, or maestros rather, and expect to come out of it unscathed, or
no, brother, that's not how that's gonna go.
You are gonna be in for some shit.
You can use me as proof the first night, because boy, oh boy.
Yeah, man, I was right next to you.
Yeah, and then what? Yours came the second or third night?
Second night was
it was because I was same situation.
Yeah,
like a giant bear next to me, heaving,
crazy,
fucking going through it in there. Yeah, no, that's a great story, man, and it's awesome because I feel like the further down the entrepreneurship path I go, the more people I meet who resonate with what I'm trying to do and are just really willing to collab or to help you out at zero cost, just because they see your passion, they believe in what direction you're headed in. It kind of sounds like that's what happened when you met Chris, right? And you just kind of hit it off, and he saw that you had a successful business being run, and like, hey, let me help you out, take this off your plate a little bit, heal up, whatever.
It's like so many things. If you're a powerful walker, like you're gonna come across people in your path that want to come with you, and and you're gonna come across other powerful walkers that you want to lock arms with and walk with. And so, I found that in the veteran community in spades after 20.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. So I think we already touched on it, and obviously has to be covered. So what is your why, and what drives you to continue to get up every day and show up for that why? I think I know what it is, because I think it's very much my why, but I'm not sure.
I'm just so fortunate. I'm so fortunate. I am very grateful that I have had all the experiences that I've had. It's funny, even when I'm working with like older clients and stuff, they're like, oh, you're just a young guy. I had someone tell me that the other day, man, I'm 36. I'm not like that young. And I was like, but I've got a lot of miles on me, man. Like,
yeah, I feel the same way at 38, right?
A lot of veterans do. We've done a lot since service too. And so it's funny, man. But my why is I truly, as corny as it sounds, I truly love helping people. I like leading by example. It makes me feel good. And my why is people. To see people, I don't need a ton of like, attaboys and slaps on the back. And that's one thing, to budding entrepreneurs that are listening to this, don't do it for that, because they're not there. You will not get handshakes. You will not get slaps on the back. You will not get that. You have to be able to talk to yourself about that. You have to be able to soothe yourself, congratulate yourself, recognize when you've done something well and celebrate it. And definitely don't shy away from celebrating it. But I just love seeing happy people and people that are growing and people that are making the world better, and not succumbing to this online filth that is kind of like, trying to take over right now. But I don't think it ever will. But, I'm in this awesome positive feedback loop. And it's like I get to wake up and help people, and it makes me feel good. And then I get to I have my own time, right? Like my schedule is my schedule. I wake up and I go to the gym or I go to yoga, and I eat pretty good most of the time. And then I freaking help people out all day. Most of the time, I have to deal with the bullshit administrative stuff. I hate that, right? But it's very sparingly in between all this time that I spend getting to talk to people like you, getting to talk to my clients, to other people that are just interested in life and like living life. And it makes me very happy.
Dude, I love that. And it's so cool to hear it, because we hadn't discussed this before ever in any of our conversations, but I have this theory, and I don't care. Everybody says they joined for a number of reasons. I have this theory that everybody joins because they're called to serve, the service aspect of it, right? Serving something that is greater than yourself, which is why I believe the entrepreneur route is the way back to purpose for veterans, because being an entrepreneur is about serving. Yeah. It's about serving people. And We have very similar whys. Mine very specifically is because I was tired of sitting back, not being able to do something about the 22 a day. It's hard for me to talk about too, man. And I'll eventually have a guest on here, not an entrepreneur, but definitely somebody who struggled with the transition. I found him hanging from a balcony. It's one of my best friends. So it's definitely, for me, it's about serving a community that I'm a part of that I know is falling apart, and being a part of just improving their situation in life. It fills my cup up so much just to see them have one little success. You know what I mean? And then to be there, when they have another success and they reach out to me like, hey man, this is what I did today and I feel so good. And it's just the most amazing feeling in the world. So I love your why, man. I love it.
When people start having even just little breakthroughs and they text me, I had this amazing breakthrough today or whatever, even if it's as small as like, man, I got in a car accident and I was able to like keep my cool. I didn't freak out. I was pissed on the inside, but I observed my emotions instead of like reacting. It's a huge win for me. And it makes me feel so good because I know I was a part of it, like even if they don't realize that, I don't care. It's like, I know. I'm just like, yes, man, like this, it makes me so freaking happy.
Yeah. You get that tingle in the back of your head when you get messages and phone calls.
Everything is up. I'm excited. And it's like,
definitely.
I think one thing too that I definitely want to mention is like we focus on the problems that the veteran community faces, of which there are a ton. But there is a tremendous amount of strength in the veteran community, and it's like drawing on that strength is a huge boon for us. And I think like, man, the amount of organizations that I've been exposed to, the amount of people that just want to help. Like it's unbelievable. If you're looking for any kind of anything, you can find it. And so it's just like being able to draw on that strength it's just massive. I just feel so lucky.
So having said all of that, especially with your last comment about and I believe this wholeheartedly, there's a ton of strength in the veteran community. On that same side, on a different side of that same coin, there's also a lot of, not so great veterans bringing the community down as well. We're not going to get into that, but what do you think the future holds for veteran entrepreneurs?
I think that I think business in general is kind of up in the air right now, right? Like we have so many questions economically about what is going to happen. And I think that the future is going to require a couple of things out of people that want to be successful. And I think the first thing is transparency and honesty. I think that is going to be the price of authority in the future. We've got this like crazy timeline right now with like and how anything can be faked. We've got these deep fakes and we've got all this crazy, like people don't know who to trust. And what I see is like, sure, there are some shitty veterans, there's shitty people, whatever. Veteran community, there are leaders. And when leaders step up, like a leader is someone who can take the community around them and just be a beacon of at least honesty. That's like the minimum. The bare minimum is like, I will tell you the truth. And you may not like it. You may want to get the fuck out of here. I don't know. But like at the very least, like a leader will tell the truth. And I think that's one thing that the veteran community can do very well because we have been there. We have seen it. We know what comes next when Uncle Sam starts talking out one side of his mouth. And yes, I think that the veteran community has a ton to offer. As far as entrepreneurship goes, it always has required and it always will require a tremendous amount of flexibility. And I'll go to my grave saying that the American infantryman is the most adaptable human being on the planet. These are facts. And like, if you haven't run down your zombie apocalypse squad, if you don't have an American infantryman on there, like you don't stand a chance, man. And I think that we just have so much to offer,
That's such a great answer. And I see it a lot the same way you see it. And I wanted to comment, you said the future of business is honest authority, right? Transparency, vulnerability. I don't want to toot my own horn because I'm very humble with everything that I've experienced over the last several months. That is kind of my approach to building my thing. And it has come back to me tenfold, man. I get messages and stuff. For example, when I got the opportunity to present to veterans, most of the messages I got from people who didn't want to book a call or whatever was, thank you for having the most authentic presentation I've seen ever in this 6-month program. And I'm like, that really spoke to me. And then I get on calls with these guys and they're like, man, you just resonate with me so much because you're honest. And I'm like, so I think we're already there in terms of honest authority in, building any kind of business. And I agree with you because I took the wrong approach when starting out and used a bunch of AI to do a bunch of the shit that I didn't want to do because unlike you, I'm not drawn to writing. It's only through becoming, a serial entrepreneur and starting various different businesses did I really realize how much writing is almost everything in business. And so, it's just awesome to hear, you've recognized that and you're not necessarily in the digital landscape, right? You're still kind of in the brick and mortar landscape. Obviously with QRF Fit, that's very digital. Now that's awesome, man. I love to hear that. When things get hard for you, how do you keep pushing? What are some of the things or tools that you do to keep yourself kind of in check, right? Because for me, like example, when I leveled up, I didn't understand that my brain no longer had the capacity to handle the amount of work. So everything starts to spiral for me, right? And like having to reflect on, okay, well, you just acquired these whole new set of problems you've never seen before. You can't be hard on yourself. You have to understand that in time, you will be able to handle all of that at once. But right now, it's just overwhelming and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so just keep showing up. Right. So how do you, what are the things that you do when you get overwhelmed like that or you feel like everything's spiraling out of control?
And this is something that I continually work on all the time. And this is something that I really, really gleaned out of being true to you is like leaning into that discomfort. And, on an ayahuasca ceremony, it is like, if the light is on the other side, the amount of demon that you're going to have to wade through to get to that light is pretty outstanding. And so this is like part of it, right? Because like, I have the memory that I've been through pretty much not any, right? There's plenty of people that have been through way more than I have. And so I don't mean to say that I've been through it all before. I haven't, but I have been through a lot. I can look back generally and look back at my time and say like, okay, I'm still breathing, still here. I made it through worse. I will make it through this too. It helps a little bit, right? But really what the biggest part about it is just being able to be patient. And my patience has grown exponentially and being able to just sit with feeling bad for longer without reacting, go to sleep angry, go to sleep sad, go whatever it is, and then think about it in the morning, It's funny, this story, when you're asking that question, the story came to me and I hadn't thought about it in a long time, man. This is a great story, but when I was a junior at West Point, so cadet, whatever. And cadet sergeant, I was a squad leader for cadet basic training. And this guy Matthews, this new cadet Matthews, you're in charge of the new cadets in the summer training. And so new cadet Matthews, we do this bayonet assault course or something like that. And he jumps over a wall, hurts himself, doesn't tell anybody. We get back to the barracks and someone knocks on my door. Sergeant, whatever. Matthews is bleeding out of his dick. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go down there and I open up the door. He's standing there in his whitey tighties, like blood soaking, like red, stained red. And I was like, oh, no. And I'm, I think I'm 18 or 19. I'm 19. I'm 19 at the time. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I'm like, and I run down to the CQ and I wish I could remember this captain's name. I did. One of my only experiences with him. But this dude, Ranger Tab, aerosol, airborne, dude, like I want to be like this guy, right? And so already I want to be like this guy. And I tell him what's going on. I'm like, sir, Matthews is fucking whatever. He's bleeding out. So and he goes, okay. He's like, pull out your pen and paper. And I'm like, sir, I don't have my pen and paper on me. And he goes, oh. And he goes, so is he in danger of losing life, limb, or eyesight? And I was like, no, sir. And he goes, oh, okay. And he reaches into his pocket, pulls out a notepad, his own pen, writes down a number for me to call. And he's like, well, we never go anywhere without the full uniform, right? And he hands me like cool as a cucumber. And I was like, God damn it. I looked at that guy and I was just like, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. And like stay calm, stay cool, and freaking deal with it, man. And so that's a long way to say, like, it's a long story to say, like, regulating my freaking nervous system, man. Like breathing, like breath work is so big. Meditating is big. And so especially when you're working with other people, like if I can't regulate my own nervous system coming into a call, man, I have no business talking to someone else who is searching, to do that, or who's trying to do that. So when things are going bad, like, okay, but like you're not dying. And if you are dying, like we'll deal with that when we get there, right? So it's, that's a lot of words to say, just trying to stay regulated, not so high, not so low, but stay in this nice little pocket a little bit. Balance, yes.
All about balance, man. I love that because very much taking away from our time, really not even in Peru, because this was instilled in us in all of our group meetings before, but returning to your breath and just centering on your breath. I never thought that something as simple as breathing could really make that big of a difference. So it's so great to hear you say that. And adding to what you said at the beginning of that, right? Like to get to that light on the other side, there's a whole lot of demons, but it reminds me of a Jordan Peterson quote. He's, the only way out is through.
Of course.
And you've made it through worse, whether you realize it or not, and you'll make it through this too. I love that, man. I love it. Let's look forward for Mr. Mulder. Where do you see the entrepreneurial journey heading for you in the next few years? Do you have any plans or goals? Are you just riding with it, seeing what comes your way? What's going on with you?
Yeah, so there's definitely been a learning curve with moving away from Liberty, for sure. But I'm figuring all that out, like figuring out how often to check in, and like it's just like anything else, though. Like people need to be heard, and so I need to hear them as well. It's definitely not a hands-off project for me. It's still very important to me. It's my first significant venture, and it means a lot to me, man. We have a huge community there, close to 250 people that train there. And this is it's an important place, and it's becoming an important place in Phoenix to train. So I want it to stay the same, and I want it to stay the same as far as everyone is welcome there and everyone is welcome to train there. Like we will never get worse. We will only get better. So that's very important to me. And so hiring the right people is very important to me, and maintaining professional coaches there is like super, super important. So Liberty is one focus. QRF is obviously another. That's definitely my primary focus right now, is building this program. It's so cool. I said my goal at the beginning of the year was to send our first 100 veterans through the program, and we are on track to do that this year. So
hell yeah, man, that makes me so happy.
It's just so cool. It is so cool. I love it. I'll be in Arizona next week, speaking at the Arizona Coalition for Military Families, about a little bit about our program, but mainly about how strength training can augment your mental capacity, your mental health, and all of the things that it does for you in your life. It really is special. So, but anyways, taking QRF and growing it further and further and further. I see myself in this executive director role for a handful more years doing this and helping to build it. I'm learning a lot too. There's a whole lot I didn't know about the nonprofit side of business, which is really, really interesting and exciting for me. I'm meeting so many awesome people. Really cool. And then I just launched my own coaching business, Apricus Coaching Initiative, last month. And so this is still in its infancy. I'm doing a lot of content coaching for people, specifically for psychedelic integration, but Apricus is more of a holistic coaching experience. So it's not, if that's what you're interested in, sure, but we want to meet, whoever that person is, match them up with a coach that's right for them and get them through it. And so that will blend the physical side of the house with the spiritual side of the house, with the emotional and mental as well.
So glad we decided to do this podcast now, because in the next year, you're going to be so busy. I'm not going to be able to have time to even talk to you on Signal.
Yeah, I always make time, man. I love doing stuff like this so much. So
yeah, no, I love where you're going with the holistic coaching, because obviously I'm in that same course that you took in the last cohort for a lot of reasons, the least of which is, giving back to heroic hearts, and then obviously giving back to veterans, but really, I saw as an avenue to do something that I truly enjoy and get in front of more people and open their minds. Are you looking to work specifically with anybody, or are you just are you niching down and working with veterans or addiction? Like, what is your plan with that? How does that look? Because I got a sneaking suspicion that over time, as this podcast grows, a lot of people are going to find a lot of value in a lot of these programs, just as I did with you guys, right? Like we put together a sheet of different programs before we left Peru that some of us had heard of, some of us hadn't. I've learned about a lot of different organizations. So I was just curious if you're really specific on that, or if you're keeping it open to anyone.
Yeah, definitely open. It's funny, when I first started Liberty, everyone was like, "Oh, you need a niche. Like, what's your niche?" And I was like, "No, the niche is optimal human movement, right?" And so and they're like, "Oh, that's not a niche. You're only doing strongman." And I was like, "No, I don't. I am a multifaceted person. person. I don't do just one thing, right? Like I play music, I write, I bow hunt, I freaking rifle. I do a lot of different things. And so that's how anything that I have my hands in is going to be. It will be multiple, it'll be multidimensional, hopefully. So no, I don't think we're gonna limit it. Obviously, there are some people that would gravitate to a coach like me as opposed to someone else, and that's completely fine. But I hope, that we can bring on coaches later on, we can serve anyone that walks in our door. And I would argue at least that that just because a person hasn't been through similar experience to you, yes, if they help them empathize at a certain level, but a good coach should be able to do that regardless and just provide a non-judgmental space where you can make your own connections. And it's not like they're telling you the connections to make.
Yeah, I love that. And it's, it's been one of the bigger things I've struggled with going through that course is really learning how to hold space with the things that don't resonate with me. And I'm not afraid to admit that I'm not that big of a person yet where I can do that. In fact, in the discussion earlier this week, there was some pretty triggering things that were said that I didn't agree with that I had to really, I'm still thinking about, and evaluating those, reframing them in my mind, understanding where they're coming from and how I can apply it to myself moving forward. So it's great to hear you say all of that stuff. Let's talk about Peru.
Let's go, man.
So Peru for me was very much kind of a rebirth, if you will. It was very much a reinvention of who I am as a person. And I think it was for just about everybody there. Was there anything specific that, in Peru that really kind of opened your eyes to how you were living life and immediately saw that it needed to change that was affecting, your home life, your business, your just generally the way you were living?
So I went into that trip down to the jungle wanting looking for three things: strength, knowledge, and endurance. And everything that I wanted, I saw, all these little small questions I had for myself, I saw in the pursuit of those three things. And so the first night, the first ceremony, I believe that I was kind of shown my own inner strength. I had such an amazing night. Despite being next to you, we were tussling with Lucifer, man. Like, I don't know what you were doing. I remember being in that hesitant, hearing what was going on with you a little bit, and trying to just block it out, be my own space, and just being like, man, I don't know what that guy's got going on, but I'm chilling right now. Like, this is amazing. And, I would say with bears, all this is amazing experience, right? So I go into the second night and I'm like, oh man, like this is going to be fucking best night of my life. Let's rock and roll, like that's the rookie, and I get there, I'm like, okay. And oh man, I was shown my own version of hell. And then I realized that it's insanity, that my own version of hell is my own insanity. Like I lost track of the inner voice, like that monologue that we have with ourselves all the time. I lost track of it. And I just had voices coming at me, like I'm sure like it feels to be schizophrenic. And it was so scary. But I kept on, and there are things that I wish I would have done differently, which is why I think I want to go back and do more things that I can integrate into my life. But
but that's coming from a perspective of look at all of the work you've done in the last 8 months, because I can absolutely relate to that too. And I'm actually wrestling with kind of that very same idea right now. Is like, they very much made us aware, like the medicine will call back to you, right? You'll know when it's time to go do it again. And so I'm trying to figure out, is it time to go do it again because the medicine's actually calling me? Or is it time to go do it again because all of the things that I'm learning how to work on different things I wish I would have been equipped with from, first trip, right? Like I can't figure that out. So is it that for you as well?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, that's the biggest part, right? Like, and it's interesting because for the limited amount of time that I've been involved in this space, like I've gone for it, right? Like I'm jumped in, head first, let's go.
Same. Yeah.
But that being said, like I've seen so many people that they're just in pursuit of that trip, and I personally, I don't think that's what it's for. The idea is not to just experience these, I really like the term non-ordinary reality. It's not to experience this ordinary reality over and over and over. The idea is to go do this, see what kind of insights your own mind produces while on this amazingly enlightening mystic substance, and then integrate it into your life and become a better person. And so when I first got back from Peru, man, like there was like that month, I think they call it like the glow period, right? Like where you're just glowing, right? And that first month I was like, oh, it's just like, amazing. Like I was sure that it took its effect, right? Boom, backslide, man. I started drinking like hard again. And I just had this like, oh man, I was drinking more than I probably ever had in my life. And I just kept hearing this like voice in my head telling me about temperance. And this was this lesson that I learned the first night in Peru, or had been shown to me at least. And so then I started getting like sober curious. And then I started like, okay, maybe like once a week type deal. And then I just had this final movement where I was just like, man, you know what? This is fucking stupid. And I just stopped. And it's really cool. I don't think I would have stopped drinking without the help of ayahuasca.
I 100% relate to that. And I mean, it's awesome of you to share that you went backwards, because I do remember a conversation we had about, you were going to try to redefine your relationship with alcohol before we ever left, the retreat, right? We weren't even back to Terapoto yet. And you were already saying that, and not in a malicious, or obviously we wouldn't be having this conversation, but like, I kind of thought to myself, like, I don't know if try is the right word, right? Like
it is the right word though, right? Because that's all we can.
Yeah.
All we can do is try. And I think that gives us a little bit more, it allows us to have a little grace for ourselves when we stumble. Because if we try to do hard things, sometimes you're not going to be able to do it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep trying. Whether that's starting a business, whether that's getting sober, whether that's freaking, I don't know, like learn a new instrument or something like that. I do think the operative word is try.
I mean, and I appreciate, that's a really good reframe for me, right? Because sometimes in the business world, especially, you get caught up in the I wills and the I ams and all that. And, I think the fact, obviously, that you realize you're backsliding, and, because sometimes I think ayahuasca was a cheat code, right? And I say that not to discourage anybody if you're thinking about pursuing it, but having the information that I have now, seeking more integration tools, going through the Being True to You course, learning, reading different things on my own after the retreat to stay connected. It's almost like I know I could have gotten there without the ayahuasca itself if I would have been given all of these tools first. You know what I mean? And so that's a big reason, other than to become a coach for HHP. I know they require being true to you, which is a big motivator for me, but more of a motivator is right after you finished your cohort, when we did our group meeting, I started to feel myself slipping back into a lot of those old habits and patterns, absolutely recognizing them this time and knowing that they're going to be a problem. But, for me, seeking more integration tools and doing more work on myself is really what I was drawn to. And so it's really cool, because it sounds like that's exactly what you did as well.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's just I don't see the pursuit ever ending. And so it's, ayahuasca as a cheat code is a pretty cool way to think about it, honestly. And it's so, I just finished, I was late to the game on this, man, but I just finished Michael Pollan's book, The How to Change Your Mind. And and he has this awesome, he's quoting someone else, I forget who, but he's basically talking about how there are no words to describe what you actually go through, right? And he's like, imagine a caveman being transported, to Manhattan, and just being like, and just what that would feel like to them, right? And then zap back to their cave, and then being, oh, what was it like? You don't have words. Oh, it's big, it's huge, it's whatever. That's exactly how I feel when I'm trying to describe the experiences that I had on ayahuasca, right? They were so interdimensional, right? Like so out there and so impactful for me. And man, just unbelievable.
And that's how I felt talking to you and Jake at the top of the hill that next morning after the first ceremony. It's like, I'm still like, well, you saw my face. I was still like, I don't know what the fuck just happened to me, but like, I don't have words for this. And speaking even further to that, I've been, dealing with some stuff from my ayahuasca journey and all that. I had not until this week broken out the journal that I wrote from that trip. I hadn't revisited it. I was really focused. I think you'll agree to this. I've been focused on bettering myself, upholding the promise that I made to all of you in that transition. That's really been my main focus, to the tune of 80 pounds and everything else. Right. And so I started reading through that, and to hear someone else say, like, you don't have the words to describe this. Like, it even shows in the way that I wrote it, because like, how do you describe something like that? And you just kind of can't. But I think oftentimes people think that, oh, we went and we got this amazing opportunity through this amazing charity, theory, and it is a cheat code, and they think that's the only way. And I really want to like kind of harp on like, no, it's not the only way, because all of the tools we had, what would we have, 6 weeks of once a week coaching before the trip, and then 4 weeks after, or was it the opposite?
It was definitely 3 individuals after, and we had 3 group sessions, and then I think it was the same beforehand.
Yeah. So really, I found all of the things that we learned through pre and post integration is really, kind of ayahuasca just showed me where I could be and how I should be, right? Like then it's up to you to implement and do the work.
And it's,
right.
as you integrate, that's why coaching, a coach for integration is so important, because hopefully they help you ground, come back to earth a little bit, and interpret what you felt and what you saw. And then you begin the process of, okay, well, how do I put this into my life, from here on out, because I mean, I don't think anyone that we went with, and I don't doubt anyone that does ayahuasca the right way would say that it wasn't a life-changing, a life-augmenting experience. It's just such a powerful, powerful tool.
Yeah, I agree with that to an extent. I think that there were people on our trip that may have not been there with the right intentions. I don't want to say
the right way, doing ayahuasca the right way. I agree with you. Yeah.
But it really, I think the best thing ayahuasca did for me was show me the difference between intention and expectation. Because there's a drastic difference, and this is coming from a guy, right? The only one in our entire group had zero experience with psychedelics my entire life. So I just went straight to the moon, right? And I remember having a conversation with Vlad and Jonathan, talking to me like, what are your intentions? My intentions are literally to just take the medicine and see what happens. I have zero expectation, like don't even know how to set intentions for this because I don't even know what I'm searching for. And man, did I get way more than I could have ever bargained for out of that whole trip. And it's a large reason why we're sitting here having this conversation. And it forced me to get out of my own way and take action on this thing, you know what I mean? And every other thing in my life. I'd been saying, I knew I was fat, man. I knew I was fat. I weighed 311 pounds when we went to Peru. And I always tricked myself into thinking, oh, you don't look that bad. You're not that unhealthy. Shit, I'm getting blood work and I'm looking at my blood pressure and it's just awful. It is not good. And I kept telling myself, hey, Monday, you're going to go back to the gym. You're going to start losing weight. And Tuesday, you're going to do it. And I just never did it. I never take that action. I just sit on my ass and just be in my own way. And super thankful that ayahuasca showed me how to get out of that. And it's through using all of those tools, the breath work, the mindset stuff, the reframing of those thoughts. And again, like that experience really, I think, applies so much in the world of entrepreneurship, right? Because it's the exact same mindset you have to have, right? And I think, giving veterans their purpose back through entrepreneurship means they're going to have to do a lot of deep work on themselves, which I think is the core of the problem.
Absolutely. And it's, even when we first started, we were talking about, the identity that you had in the military, and you get out and then you're thrown to the wolves, really. And your entire identity is assigned to you in the military. Like, guess what? You like killing people, you like shooting people in the face, you like this shit now, boy, and you're going to keep liking it. And guess what? You fucking do. And then you get out and you're like, whoa, wait a second. Like all the messaging is gone, all the like constant reiteration, like the tribalism, the brotherhood, that's all gone. And now you're left with just yourself. And it's like, okay, who am I? Who, like, where? And then you realize like you're still a collection of all of your experiences and all of your thoughts that have led you up to that point. And if you're able to, and I think it's not something that really you get right immediately, and I don't know if I have it right, I have no idea, but if you're able to start to kind of integrate all of those experiences together and ask yourself, like, who is this like person inside of me that did all of these things, some that I regret, some that I am ashamed of, and had all these things happen to me, some that were good, some that were terrible, like, who the hell am I? And for me, like just being able to observe my own internal answers to those questions was something that ayahuasca started, and the work is really starting to give.
It's definitely the work, and approaching everything with intent as well, right? Like and thank you for sharing such an intimate piece of your journey with us, because I know that's not easy to do. In fact, I was reading my journal the other day, and some of it just took me straight back to a lot of the emotions and the feelings, and so I appreciate that. I just want to end with a few questions. It's more than a few, I'll be honest. But really speaking to, veterans who are struggling with that decision of becoming an entrepreneur. So the first one, what do you think the most important first step that they should take when considering, not going the traditional ACAP, whatever they call it now, TAPS, I think, route, go to college, get a 9 to 5 for us enlisted, or, I don't even know what they tell you officers, because you guys get out a completely different way.
Same shit. Yep.
Same thing. So what would you say is most important first steps for them to take if entrepreneurship is really the route that they want to go?
Just make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. And so like maybe you have this like novel idea, and then if you have that, like, and you have the means to put it into effect, then it usually means that you're pretty passionate about it. Or maybe you're just really passionate about something. The money will come if you're passionate. I believe that. I really do. And so that's the first thing. And then really consider your support network. And like, you're not going to be able to do this alone. No one does it alone. And so, consider that support network, and just, again, like, weigh your passion and your fear. If your passion outweighs your fear, take that first step.
Hell yeah, man. I love that, dude. Share some common pitfalls or challenges you've observed among the veteran community who do start businesses, and maybe some ways to avoid them, or maybe reframe it so that they don't fall into those same traps. I'll give you an example. I am doing this because I got inundated with the YouTube gurus and the analysis paralysis, spent a few $1,000s on some courses that were really just, a small piece of a larger funnel for them to get more money out of me, where they never really give you the secret that they talk about or whatever. Here's the deal, folks. There is no secret. It's hard fucking work, and it's showing up every day until you get successful. That's really the secret. Those are the examples that I'm here to kind of dispel. Like, I hate YouTube gurus. I'm not in this to make money. Although I'm with you, I know the money will come if I just help people, and I'm passionate about it. So
I think, be frugal with who you give your money to. Absolutely. Especially when it's like sales. If you're being sold on something, like, just be careful. Definitely. That's something that we all have to deal with to this day, right? I've spent more money, burned more money on advertising than I could care to count, but it's crazy. But
that's a hard lesson to learn too.
But you start learning it, so and then the only other one that kind of came to mind was like, and it's particular to some like male veterans, and I think I've fallen prey to this a little bit. Like, sometimes you start thinking that you start liking the smell of your own shit a little bit too much, and that's something you really have to be careful with. And so just remember to stay humble. Remember not to judge, and not to judge people so hard or so harshly. And that includes yourself. But like, just always ask yourself, like, am I remaining humble? And like, am I remaining grateful for this opportunity to become an entrepreneur? Like, why did you do this in the first place? And so living with a little bit of gratefulness will go a long way.
I love that, because the second you step outside of being humble, the universe is there to kick you right the fuck back down. It will remind you every time. You already spoke to this, and I wanted to touch on it again. You said you can't do this alone, and I totally agree. So much so that I buy into your network is your net worth. Is that something you subscribe to? And just speak to how important networking has been for you in this journey.
I mean, networking is everything. And so Malcolm Gladwell wrote The Tipping Point, and he's talking about like social fads, but I think it applies to business too. He's like, if you have the three things that you require: a maven, a connector, and a salesperson. And the maven is obviously like the person who knows everything about a subject. Salesman is the salesman, and then the connector is the networker, right? And so that's the role that I serve best, I think, is the connector. And so it's very important to me. And so everywhere I go, it's, you can call it networking, I guess. I just call it being friendly and talking to people. But everywhere you go, it's a potential connection, and so never shut anything off. It's crazy. I was on a flight to Arizona last year, and I sat next to a guy. I was wearing my Merger Vets and Players sweatshirt, and he's like, "Oh, are you a veteran?" Whatever. We get talking, and turns out he owns, or he leases 50,000 acres of land out here in Oklahoma. I went down and visited him. He's like, "Yeah, we'll do stuff with vets out here. We've got like ATV parks, and you can go camping and shit." And so, and I'll probably go hunting with him later this year. So it's like, yeah, like
Yeah.
everything is a networking opportunity.
I love how you talked about, Gladwell's book. I've read that. I've read Outliers as well. Phenomenal books. But I agree, you got to have those three essential pieces. And something I'm leaning into now is I am a connector. I didn't realize that before. And it's just, I don't know, it's almost freeing when you figure that out about yourself, because I did the sales piece and I'm good at it. It's just not for me. It's not who I am. I very much enjoy this, just like you do. And I didn't think that could be a business, but it is so much of a business. It's like its own business. You know what I mean? So I love that.
Yeah.
Do you have any, because this is another common question I get. It seems to me, and I'm guilty of this too, right? Not recognizing that I am a connector. But then my wife pointing out to me that I just have this innate ability to strike up and keep a conversation going with anybody. So what tips would you have for people who do struggle with maybe being more outward and kind of outgoing enough to start making those connections? And I only ask this because when I started, building an audience in the digital space on LinkedIn, I had like 92 followers, just crossed over 1,200 a little over a week ago. For me, it felt very awkward to reach out to strangers and talk about the thing that I'm passionate about. But then over time for me, I started to realize like, oh, this is how you do it. Like, this is the secret, So do you have any tips for how people can kind of break out of that? Like for me, it was really the infantry mentality, just blunt force. They tell me this is what you have to do. I'm just going to do it.
So unfortunately, I think I'm probably the wrong person to ask about that, because I think it's an innate thing for me. It's like, a lot of like athletes, they make shitty coaches because they're just naturally gifted athletes, right? And so what I would say though is it's just like, be yourself, and like it's okay if some people don't like it. And so be okay with that. Like, it's not hard to be yourself. It should never be hard to be yourself. And so if it is hard for you to be yourself, then there's some other work you got to do. But yeah, so I would say be yourself. And as far as like the actual, like, hey, I have to extend my network, you can do it yourself. And if you're not comfortable doing it yourself, find somebody who is. Team up with somebody, get some help, and don't be afraid of that.
You're definitely not the wrong person to ask me, because like part of this whole idea behind the show is to just show how different veterans build differently and just how possible it is, right? Like, you've been to some dark places, you've faced some incredible adversities, and you're still standing. And I don't know, to me, you look pretty happy, brother.
Feeling all right these days, man.
And so this one's pretty important to me, and I think maybe one of the most important, kind of points that we make on this show about entrepreneurship. What did the role of mentorship play in your journey? And can you speak to how important it is to have or find a good mentor, and then maybe a little bit about how they should go about finding that mentor?
I mean, when you find one, I'm not sure if there is a good way to find one, right? I'm not sure. I wish I had an answer to like, hey, Google this and you'll figure it out. But no, dude, mentors, they are so freaking important. And especially in entrepreneurship, because you will feel so alone sometimes. And it's wild, man. And so that's why I think you have to collect them. Like, it's awesome if you have one that works for you, great. But like, I've had like strength and conditioning mentors like Chipko. So she's just a massive influence in my application of science to sports performance. And I love seeing him. We're very good friends. Like, came to my wedding. He's awesome guy. And so mentor there. And then it's so funny because, I look at my father as a mentor as well. And I can't remember what it was. I think it was just like another scaling problem that we were having with Liberty. And I was talking to Iris and my wife Iris, and I was like, man, like I wish I had a mentor that could like help me with this right now. Like, I wish I had someone that I could talk to. And like always, I should have just sat with it longer, because I've go out with one of my friends who happened to be my web designer, and like the guy is such a genius as far as like as far as like the stuff that I'm terrible at, is tech stuff. And I go out with him and I just have like revelation after revelation after revelation, talking with this guy. And I'm just like, I had never even realized that he was a mentor of mine. Like I didn't even know it. And it just, boom, it fell into my lap. And I'm like, and then now that I know that, I keep it close. I'm like, I treasure it. And so I think that's the real piece that's important, is like, man, you've got to, when you recognize a good thing, do your best to hang on to it. Do your absolute best.
Couldn't agree with that statement more. And that was kind of a loaded question, because I don't think you can counsel or coach anyone on how to find a mentor, because I think that's very ultra specific to you and your inner self. And you really do there's just an intuition. You just know it. And it's happened to me on my journey. Colby was the first and remains, I'm a huge part of his significant solopreneur community, which is where I've learned a ton. And then through that community, I met Xenia, and she introduced me to Brad. And it's just this never ending trail of talking to people. And then one day you have this conversation, like you said, you sit with it and you're like, that is a mentor. That is somebody that I can learn from regardless of how they talk to me. And it's just so cool. And I think this is going to be like my favorite question ever, because it's such a loaded question, but everybody's going to have different approaches to it. And it's super important. What resources, tools, or programs do you recommend for veterans who are starting their entrepreneurial ventures? I know you do the grant writing for QRF, correct? So I know you could definitely speak to some stuff like that. I'm not into the traditional brick and mortar stuff, so I know there's a lot of grant programs and entrepreneur programs out there for like buying franchises and all of that. I'm choosing arguably a harder route, and that I'm just building from zero on the internet, right? Like, just because I want that freedom. But do you have a list of things, or just a few things off the top of your head that you would recommend as resources for people?
Depending on what you're doing, there's different set of resources for you. But I will say that like being a veteran gives you a leg up in finding those resources. And so if that is a string that you're comfortable pulling, pull it. When I was first starting, it's not one that I was comfortable pulling. So I went my own way, but I wish I would have, man. I wish I would have leaned on, the VA a little bit harder for funding, and like, because it's out there. There's lots of money out there, and there's lots of people in this country that want to support veterans. That being said, there's also a lot of people that would take advantage of you, just like they take advantage of the next guy. So be careful of that too. But yeah, like there's these like programs and tools. They're always changing. There's always new ones coming up. There's always people that want to help you. Like I think it's like mental health. That's been a huge one for QRF. Like we're finding these grant programs there, but more so at the community level. That's where I would suggest looking first, rather than go to the top. Like look around your community and see who is involved in the same types of things as you, and who might be able to, lend you financial assistance if that's what you're looking for, or mentorship, or just like the more people you talk to, the bigger your network grows, the more these tools and resources appear to you.
Yeah, that's great, man. I totally agree with that. Starting in the community, I always recommend start at your local chamber of commerce, because that's where all the business people are going to collect, right? Like you may not get along with all of them, but you'll damn sure learn something from them.
Yeah, I was part of a business networking initiative for a long time, and I don't think I got any financial return on it, but I learned so much. And so I implemented all these new things into the business, and the things that I didn't like, I didn't do. And so you're just like, if you're always learning, like it's, and you're always open, then stuff will appear.
Yes, sir. So this one's a fun one. And I think this one's ultra powerful for veterans, because, it will help them eliminate that question of where do I start, or I don't have what it takes, or some of that fear. So I'm of the belief that we in the military developed a bunch of high leverage skills that apply to the business world, just hands down, more than anybody coming from the civilian world, from any career straight into starting a business. I think we definitely have an advantage. So what are your favorite high leverage skills that we learn in the military that have applied to you and your businesses, and why are they, I guess, so important to your business? And how did you really identify those as strengths coming into the business world?
That's a great question. So some of these high leverage skills, I like the way that you put that. That's cool. They're awesome to have, and they're very difficult to sell yourself on. And so like one thing with Liberty, right? Like the thing that we do best, honestly, is we provide a community for lifters, for all kinds of lifters, right? It doesn't sell well though. And it's like we have community. Every single fucking gym out there says that they have community. And like you saying that online, it's very difficult to say that. It's very easy to show some. And so a lot of these things they apply to veterans. Yeah. Okay. Flexibility, adaptability, right? That's the first thing that came to my head. That's the number one thing I got out of my military service is flexibility, adaptability, resilience. Like there's not a whole lot you could throw at me that would shake me off course. And so those are all amazing things. And they are things that you will personally leverage throughout your journey. But I think one of the things that's often overlooked by veterans, it was for me, like when I first got out, is like being a veteran immediately gives you your bases of power, right? Like you've got legitimate power, you've got referent power, you've got informational power, all these different things, right? It gives you immediate power in any situation. And so you don't need to wield it like a club, but you should be aware that it will get your foot in the door in so many situations. And so like people want to hear about your service and they want to hear what it was like and they want to fantasize. I can't tell you how many freaking dorks I've talked to that are like, oh yeah, I would have served, but I fucking did, and whatever excuse they come up with, right? And they're just project their little, like their whatever reason they do end up serving, they project it on you, right? Because they respect what you did. And there's so many people out there in the civilian world that have a ton of respect or admiration or fear or whatever it is. It will get your foot in the door in a lot of situations. And so I think if you are respectful to them always, even if you have these little thoughts that we all have in our head sometimes, it will get your foot in the door, and to not be afraid of leveraging that. When I was at the Fisher Institute, I was like a young coach. I had no business being there really, but I was just working really hard the best I could. And I still remember like any NFL, if I worked with Carson Palmer individual, I worked with like Darrell Revis, I worked with some like big time names, and to a T, every single one of them, once they found out I had been to Afghanistan, dynamic changed, like immediate respect from them. And it was like, which was amazing for me, right? Because who am I? I'm, at the time I'm just like some, little freaking intern doing his best. And so that was really cool to see too. So I think like not being ashamed of what you did and where you came from and how hard you worked, because the military takes a whole lot from you. And so you just have to be able to see what it gave to you as well. And hopefully it gave you something.
Dude, that's so great because I couldn't put my finger on what you were talking. Like I've noticed in building, especially in the online space, people find out that you're a veteran, especially because it's my whole niche, right? Like I'm speaking to veterans and very publicly. And so like you get those random DMs, thank you for your service. It means so much. Like I couldn't have ever served, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm a super humble guy. In fact, it makes me uncomfortable when people thank me for my service. What I noticed is like, no matter who I was talking about, I already had, whether I had 90 followers or 1,000 followers, I already had this certain amount of trust and authority. And so you pointing out that it's just this power base that you have, I didn't even realize that that's actually what. So, you've kind of opened my mind to a new skill that I can present to my audience as well. And I really, I just appreciate that that's how your brain works, because I've been trying to put my finger on what that is for so long. And here you are, just throwing it out there.
I did a presentation forever ago on, it was 2017. It was on I called it the shape-shifting strength coach. And it was all about how, there is no one size fits all. And this applies to so many things, not just being a strength coach. And yeah, like you, like leveraging your basis of power. It's so important. And that's one thing that all veterans have. And I didn't realize it until that time at the Fisher Institute. And it's okay. Freaking, lean on it. Lean on your experience.
I love it, man. I love it. What advice do you wish someone had given you when you started? Just one, man. It doesn't have to be super in depth. Just what do you think the best piece of advice you could have received when you first started?
Okay. It was definitely, I wish someone would have explained to me better, because I didn't know the technical side of the house, right? And so I wish someone would have told me, hey, when looking for that salesman, right? Because I had the connector and I had the Maven. I was looking for that salesman and I spent so much freaking money looking for him or her. And I wish someone would have told me ahead of time, like, look for someone who knows the tech. like look for the tech side of the house. And like in this, like, you know, tech driven world that we're in, like, I don't know that. I know people, I don't know like the tech, right? So we finally started working with a company who's doing some business for us. And it's like, you know, what they explained to me, it was like revolutionary to me. I always thought when I'm designing ads, I'm like, okay, to the person who's seeing the ad, right? They're like, no, you got to talk to the search engine first, and then you got to talk to the person that's going to see it. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay. I don't know how to talk to a search engine. And they're like, we do. So I wish someone would have told me that. Like, look for a company, a proven company with a proven track record. And if they cost a lot of money, there's a reason, and you're going to end up wasting that money on shitty people anyways. So look for the tech expert.
It's definitely, business, right? You know, I understand that you can make a lot of money building a newsletter. I just don't understand how you set up the funnels and the marketing and the automations and and then you start learning about that stuff and I'm really in over my head. It's really great to, again, you said it earlier in the show, right? You're not doing this by yourself. You're not doing this by yourself. There's going to come a time where you're going to either invest time or money to free up that time, and recognizing what your strengths and weaknesses are, understanding that you need a maven and a connector and a sales, you know, that's super important so that you know what to do with your resources, whether that's time or so that when you're building, you do what is best for your business and you're good at, and then you put the other on somebody who, like you said, knows the tech or knows how to sell. Correct. Love that, man. Love that. Last thing, man. Well, there'll be one more thing after this, but this is a more personal thing. Any motivational words, mantras that you live by, or just anything you want to say to inspire the community? By the community, I mean veterans in general, who definitely, I think, should all be building their own businesses.
Stay curious, man. Stay curious about everything. Don't close yourself off to things. And if you're naturally stay curious, like you'll naturally stay humble, and then stay curious, stay humble, stay grateful for what you have. Living your life grateful, it's the way to do it. And if you can find a reason to be grateful every day, when you wake up in the morning, in the middle of the day, when you go to sleep at night, think about those things, man. There's so much to be grateful for. I don't care where you are, in what position, like what's going wrong in your life. Find something to be grateful for, and things will turn around, I promise. It happens every single time if you live your life gratefully.
Dude, I have a gratitude practice. Every morning when I wake up, I sit up in bed before I ever get out. I say 5 things I'm grateful for. Every single morning. Last thing for me, man, it's a personal question. Is Hunter S. Thompson your favorite? I see his picture behind you.
Is he my favorite? Oh, shoot, man. The short answer is yes. The short answer is yes. He's that freaking LSD maverick, amazing writer, crazy guy, loose cannon, rebel. I love him, man. I love the Hells Angels stuff he did. I love Fear and Loathing. Awesome. I mean, I love like his story of him running as sheriff in Aspen. Like, I mean, his story is just phenomenal. But, so short answer. Yeah, he's gotta be my favorite. Yeah.
I kind of figured, because there's always a Hunter S. Thompson quote in your feed.
I love it.
And I saw that. Now I see the picture over your shoulder. I forget sometimes that you're in Oklahoma now, because I'm used to your office with the bow.
Yeah. This on the shop now. I got room for it.
But tell everybody where they can find you at on all your socials, man. I'll definitely put a link when this goes out. I think it'll be on YouTube. It'll definitely go out on all the major podcast platforms. Definitely want to make sure that people can find you and reach out to you, and hopefully participate in your programs.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, first and foremost, QRF Vet. That's our website. You can check out what we're doing with QRF. It's awesome. If you want to get a hold of me directly, you can definitely get email just at rich@Apricus Coaching, and Apricus, APRICUS. The email is the best way to do it. Social media, I'm a private guy, but you can request to follow me. I'll probably deny you if I don't know you. But you can follow my organizations, Liberty Performance and QRF Fit on Instagram. Yeah, brother, I love you so much, man. I'm super grateful that you agreed to do this. I had a blast, man. This was awesome. Thank you so very much. It means the world. This is great, man. I really appreciate it too. This is super cool, and I'm honored. I'm humbled to be here. So thanks so much, Adam.
Dude, I love it, man. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.